Good morning. Welcome back to day 2 of our return to work in a world of changing work. I know that's not exactly the words, but there's so much work in there, I get all kind of confused. So my name's Steve Mantis, and it's my job as part of the organizing committee to kick off today. And I can't help but continue the theme that was started yesterday with a little remembrance of Catherine Lapel, which this event is kind of dedicated to. And for me, it's kind of a full circle. I met Catherine here in Ottawa, just down the street at another hotel in 1990. And it was a conference organized by a bunch of injured workers and allies that was focused on return to work. That was our focus because workers told us over and over, I want to go back to work. So we said, okay, the system has barriers. Let's focus on that. And that full circle is, okay, 34 years later in June, I think it was probably June 12th, 34 years ago. We feel like we've been betrayed by our desire to go back to work. Because now the system tells us, we're going to force you back to work. We're going to make sure you go back to work, rather than respecting our own values and desire. They turn this into, you're resisting. Well, no, we're not. We want to heal first, and then we want to go back to work, and we want to continue working for the rest of our working lives. We don't want to be forced into a situation where we're not healed and we get re-injured. But now that makes you bad because you're looking after your health before you're looking after the profit of your employer. Things have kind of gone a little bit funny. But Catherine was the one that brought us back always to, how does this really work? And the quote from yesterday morning is, how do we make sure that workers and injured workers are not seen as criminals? So it is once again in that spirit today that we resume our discussion. And that's the challenge for all of us. And I welcome working with all of you to address that challenge in a meaningful way. And we're kicking off today with a presentation from a representative of one of that groups that has been challenged on many levels in terms of the lack of acknowledgement and respect they receive as workers, as human beings. And I'm so pleased to introduce Gabriel Allahdua. I hope I got that close. Gabriel is a former migrant farm worker from St. Lucia. It's an island in the Eastern Caribbean. He's an organizer with the collective Justice for Migrant Workers for almost a decade. He is currently an outreach worker working with migrant workers across Ontario. He is an activist in residence at the University of Guelph, the first person to hold that position, which brought together activists and researchers. Once again, learning from some of those examples of how the universities can use their credibility and their resources to link with important community and social issues in society. So Gabriel's an author of a recently published award-winning book, Harvesting Freedom, published by Between the Lines. And his title today for the presentation is How the System Makes Migrant Workers Vulnerable in Canada. Please join me in welcoming Gabriel, our keynote speaker this morning.
Thank you, everyone. Good morning. Mr. Chairperson, why is the head table empty? Why is everybody at the back? And why are you scared, everybody, Mr. Chairperson? Please distract the chairperson for me because he has given very little time to say a lot of things. My name is Gabriel, as you heard. I want to talk about, a while ago he said full circle, full circle. I'm from the Caribbean, and there are lots of pests that causes diseases that basically they transmit lots of diseases. And the mosquito is an example, right? Where in the cycle of a mosquito, we can, because it's a pest, where can we tackle it? Where's the weakest point that we can tackle a mosquito? And injured workers, where in that cycle that we can really tackle the system and bring change? Talking about that, we are all connected by food. I personally believe that the food that we eat can be the safest form of our medicine. If we eat well, it's like food is our medicine. I also believe that the food that we eat can be the slowest form of our poison. If we don't eat well, medicine will be our food. I personally believe that. I want to tell you, this conference can happen every year, every year, every year. But today I want to talk to you as an activist. I am assuming that there's some people who know very little about the people who produce our food. I'm assuming. And I'm assuming there's some people, and I can see in the audience, there's some people who know a lot. I'd rather pitch it at a level where, for those of you who do not know, that you will become aware of the real issues. I'm not too sure who's controlling the slides. Who's controlling the slides, the PowerPoint? I'm not too sure.
There's a remote control right on the podium.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. Yeah.
I thought I was working on the farm. I never worked with.
Yeah. So now you're holding it upside down. Flip.
Now, how does it work now?
So flip it upside down.
Sorry?
Upside down. You're holding it upside down.
Look
there you go.
Yes.
And then right is next and left is previous.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Oh, look at that. That's so easy. Can I go home and do the PowerPoint from home? I always wanted to be a migrant worker working, how do they call that? From home remotely. I'm starting with this PowerPoint there. By now, I hope everybody know about this. The 17 SDGs. Look at number 1. No poverty. Look at number 8. Decent work. Do you know about these 17 SDGs? I would encourage you to learn about it. And what is the theme of that? No one left behind. No one left behind. No one left behind. Where does Canada stand? In Canada, I love when the politicians, and that's who are the organizers there? I'm so disappointed with the organizers. Why am I disappointed with them? I'm in Ottawa. I want to be where the politicians are, because a lot of the issues it's political. I love when the politicians say a Canadian is a Canadian is a Canadian. I love that. I love when they say from coast to coast to coast, everybody's included. But in Canada, you can never hear a worker is a worker is a worker. You can never hear that, because in Canada, and I'll prove to you that a migrant worker is not a human being in Canada. I'll prove to you. I took that from Dr. Janet. Where is she? This is an ad. Because of time, I cannot go into it, but look at the conditions, look at the requirements to be a migrant worker. And you can see it's a while now, because the minimum wage, or the wage, was $11, right? Because of time, I have to run for it. I want to tell you, from the migrant workers, when they look at the things and the people that are treated with rights and respect, I want to tell you that in Canada, the lawn outside, the trees outside, your pets are treated with more respect than a migrant worker. Now, is that an accident, or is that by design? To tell you only one part of the story is essentially to lie to you. We cannot change the past, But I'm hoping what I'm going to tell you will change your blindness or will encourage you to learn more about the issues. I want to tell you, in Canada, in the Canadian food system, what does migrant workers want? We want justice. What does the farmers want? They want profit. What do migrant workers want? We want a food system. I'm loud. I have a long mouth. I have a big mouth because I want a food system that is healthy, that is sustainable, that is just. I want to, from coast to coast to coast, wherever you buy your food, that you know you're buying a food that's grown in a system that is just. What does the employers want? They want a system that makes it legal to exploit the soil, a system that's legal to exploit the environment, a system that's legal to exploit migrant workers. I want to tell you, for simplicity, in Canada, temporary foreign workers come generally on the SWAP, SAWP. What is that? I want you to read a little about that. I'll tell you a little bit about it in a short while. That's one program, and the low-wage stream is another program. So there are different programs that bring in migrant workers. But at the end of the day, these are temporary contracts. What does that mean? The contracts are fixed. And what is it? The employer specific. Employer specific. Is there another way of saying employer specific? We are tied to our employer. It's a closed work permit. And as a result of that, a lot of power is granted to the employers. The employer has the authority to terminate and deport workers. Look at the word, deport. If you are from Ontario, the employers control the travel agency, CANAG, the travel agency that booking our flights in and out of Canada. Essentially, our employers are CBSA. They have the authority. Can you imagine that? You cannot imagine that. So you can see the design of those programs. It confines migrant workers to the agricultural sector. Confined. Look at the word, confined. Fine and confined. Confine migrant workers to the agricultural sector, and we'll be talking about that. As a result, we are more susceptible to difficult working conditions. Because of time I have to run. This immigration framework, it instills fear, and I can spend the whole afternoon, the whole day talking about fear. It instills a lot of fear in the workers, and there's fear for, because of that, the workers are afraid that there'll be reprisals. And we can talk a lot about that. Deportation, as I just said, they control the travel agency. Also, as a result of fear, it hinders. Is that a good word? Hinder. Is a better word than that? It stifles the workers. It prevents them from reporting grievances, addressing maltreatment, raising health and safety issues. There's a multi-millionaire in Toronto. He said there are two ways to earn money in Canada, to make money: cheating people or building people or creating value. By now, you'll realize that the food system, how do they make money? And how do they these guys at low-skilled jobs, right? That's how they kind of make us feel that's nothing. These are low-skilled jobs. And what are the consequences or the features of that? Those low-skilled jobs that they say that we're doing: low wages, precarious working conditions, lack of labor rights. We'll get into that. I hope I have enough time to do that. In Canada, some people tell me, in the little circle that I have, don't work hard, work smart. Who are the people that are working hard? Who are the people working smart? Essentially, let's talk a little about the Canadian food system. There's insufficient. I think I need a better word than insufficient. Literally, like there's no regulatory protection for the workers. They're excluded. Look at the word excluded. Number 3, inability for migrant workers to collectively organize. Essentially, what am I telling you? The Canadian food system, it is legal to exploit the soil. It is legal to exploit the environment. It is legal to exploit migrant workers. In Canada, the Canadian food system, it's denying migrant workers the chance to advocate or assert their rights. If you work in a unionized work, 8 hours a day, blah, 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 blah. What is the opposite of that? Migrant workers, it's the opposite of that. We do not work 8 hours a day, no. And all of that, we work, in a short while, you'll see, literally, all the gains, all the benefits that you have from unionized work, we do the opposite. We are here to do non-unionized work. Can you imagine that for a minute? Non-union. And where is that happening? south of the border. No, south of the, right there. That's the food that you're eating. That's the food that you people are doing non-unionized work. There are three sides to a story. I used to hear there are two sides to a story. There are three sides to a story. There's my side, there's your side, and there's the truth. I had the free side. What does the government say? What does the farmer say? Oh, we have a cheap food system. What do they say? I treat my workers like family. What do they say? Migrant workers have the same rights as Canadians. That's the politicians. That's why I wish I was there right now with the politicians. That's what they say. That's their story. They like to hear that. But what do the migrant workers say? Silence, fear. That's the language of the poor. Do you hear them? Whenever we are made invisible, why am I here? You don't hear these stories. Invisible. That's the story of the migrant worker. And if you ever hear a migrant worker, if you ever hear a migrant worker's voice, know that they are cherry-picked. They're handpicked by the employers. Some of the stories I hear, when ESDC is going to do inspections, the employers will tell the workers, the workers, they think that are vocal, they'll send them on work far, and they would handpick the workers that will be within reach of the people doing the inspection. Remember, guys, do not throw me under the bus. These people are cherry-picked. Will the truth ever come out? Even though the governments were to send people to the inspection, who would you trust? Right? There's so much fear. Will the truth ever come out? These are the workers' story. And so basically, migrant workers are forced to be submissive and compliant. But what is the truth? Let me tell you, what is the truth? Let's talk about the truth. What is the truth? There's a lot of fear. What is the truth? There's a lot of fear. And let's talk about fear. I'm so fearful. It's going to be tight to get that. Fear. I want to tell it to you in such a way that you'll never forget. In school, I struggled with the word debt. I couldn't spell debt. Right now, all of us, because of inflation and everything, all of us, debt is an important word. Who are the organizers? Can you give everybody a check to live a debt-free life? We are the organizers for the event. There are no organizers, right? Okay. I used to struggle with the word debt. I couldn't spell debt. I thought I was struggling with the word debt to spell it. But in Canada, I just realized that my struggle in school, that is my career. Debt. What is debt? Stands for denied, excluded, and tied. Denied, excluded, and tied. What does denied mean? And I'll show you a slide in a while. And that is enshrined in Canadian law. Migrant workers are denied the right to participate in family life. Denied the right to participate in family life. Denied another name for migrant worker in Canada is denied. Another name for migrant worker in Canada is denied. And that is enshrined in Canadian law. Is that an accident? E, excluded. The laws that are designed to protect workers in Canada, migrant workers are. What does exclude mean? Is that an accident? And T, tied. We have a tied work permit. So to be tied to the employer, denied basic human rights and excluded from basic protection. These are the people that produce your food. On the other hand, DDT. Canada is saying to Europeans, we cannot deny you freedom. We cannot deny you right. We cannot tie you to your employer. Can we go home now? I like to use props. If you like props, you like me. If you don't like props, you'd hate me for the rest of your life. The program that brought me to Canada is the SWAP program, and it is like a tree. This year, it started in 1966. When I look at the audience, I cannot see anybody who's 50. 1966 to now is what, 54, 58 years, right? This program is 58 years. This program is 58 years. Silence. You don't hear anything much about it. Silence. Talk about silence. In a while, I'll tell you about silence. The three pillars of that program, the stem, the branches, the leaves. Does that look like a tree? The stem, the branches, the leaves. We are in Canada because of the stem of that program. What is the stem? We are here to do jobs Canadians do not want to do. And during the pandemic, with unemployment so high in Canada, I thought that would be the end of migrant workers in Canada. With unemployment so high, and it is a pandemic, I thought Canadians would go and produce the food. Even during crisis, Canadians do not want to do it. Why? Because it is the jobs. What kind of work? The jobs. Dirty, difficult, dangerous, deadly. An average of 2 workers are dying every year. An average of 2 workers. If workers are dying, can you imagine how many more are getting injured? And is it surprising why we have a conference today? And every year we can have the same conference because this thing can continue. Where do we break it in the cycle? But how can you break it if you're not aware of it? That is why I will not punish the organizers. I will reward them because you've given me the opportunity to pinpoint the cycle and then we can tackle it. I'm 20. The number 20 in that telephone number are 20 injustices. What are the 20 injustices? I don't have time to go through all of them, but I just want to tell you, those injustices that every level of government. That is why I want you all to go, let us go with me there to the politicians. They are is that an accident? Is that an accident? And I want to get to the root of it. At the root of it, I told you, as a while ago, I just told you, at the root of, there's so many things at the root of it, but DET, that is at the root of it. Some people will deny them, would exclude them, would tie them, but other people, we cannot deny them, we cannot tie them, we cannot, or we should not. That is at the root of it. Are you aware of it or not? I want to tell you also, in my home country, red and white means love. I'm not seeing anybody in red and white. Why is that? Nobody have love here? Me too, I felt the love of Canada on many occasions in my home country. When I got the opportunity to come to Canada, imagine in my home country, you're so good to me. Now I'm coming to Canada. I expected so much better things, only to find out, red in my country is danger. Every time I see red, I think of danger. But every time I see a leaf, to me, every time I see a leaf should be green. Because that is where our food is being manufactured. Every time I see a leaf, it should be green. But red is danger. The red hair, it reminds me of the 20 injustices, the difficult working and living conditions that migrant workers face. Is that an accident? Is that an accident? Or is that by design? I want to tell you also, I went across Ontario to buy the nicest bag. Does that look like the nicest bag in Ontario? And that's how it's presented to us. What is presented to us in such a nice way? Buy local. Buy local. I love buying local. When you buy local, freshness. The fresher the fruit or the food, the more nutritious it will be, right? I agree. We're supporting the local economy. But today we're going to buy local. Let us buy local. Canada is saying, when you buy local, that the people, once migrant workers are involved in the production of your food, there are lots and lots of injustices. Canada is saying the people that are producing your food, I love people, send me people who are brown, people who are black, people of color. So it is built on race. Send me those people of color, and especially if English is a second language to them. A lot of the workers are Spanish. And even though a lot of them are Jamaicans speak patois, the Jamaican patois, right? They struggle with English. Sorry. I love people of color. I love that they're struggling with English. And even better yet, if they are ignorant about labor issues and human rights issues. And remember, these people are already denied, they're already excluded, they're already tied. And to make it worse, another layer, their race, ignorance, and they struggle with English. And what is Canada saying? Oh, come, welcome. These are the people, welcome, in a climate of fear. And I can spend the whole afternoon talking about fear. And let me just give you one example of fear. To deny somebody, exclude that person, tie that person, isn't that fear already? Isn't that fear already? Welcome them in a climate of fear. Where is that happening? Where is that happening? Right here under our nose. Right here under our nose. And Canada, on the world stage, what is Canada? On the world stage, Canada is a champion for human rights. Go to China. What does Canada tell China? Improve your human rights record. What does Canada tell the UN? The same rights and privileges that my citizens enjoy, I'll extend them to refugees. But quietly, Canada perpetuates 18th century working conditions. And where is that happening? In Canada. Canada has a culture of silence. Nobody says anything. And that is why I think whether I should punish everybody here. Because of your silence, I came to Canada. Because in my head, no news is good news. In my country, no news is good news. So when I got the opportunity to come to Canada, I was come to the perfect place because I don't know anything. Everything must be right. No news is good news. I'll decide whether I'll punish you or whether I'll reward you. And we're welcome in a climate of fear, in a country with a culture of silence. Now, is that an illegal or a legal program? It has a full blessing of government. A full blessing of government. And you know what the politicians are happy to tell me? That's not an issue in my riding. That is not an issue in my riding. Because we are made invisible, culture of silence and so on. So where in the cycle do we break that? Do we fight it? And let's talk about break and fight. How much time? I'm very poor. I have a master's degree, a PhD in poor time management. What? How much time do I have? How much time do I have? Really? I want y'all to distract him for me because he's the most accurate timekeeper in the whole of Ottawa. Yeah. Let's talk about fight. That is why we're asking for status. What is status? To the average Canadian, status means the ability to live in Canada, to stay in Canada. Yes. To a migrant worker, status is a two-edged sword. What is status? A two-edged sword. If I have status, I'm not afraid of being sent back home. It takes care of my immigration vulnerability. What is status to a migrant worker? It takes care of their immigration vulnerability. What is status to a migrant worker? It takes care of my labor vulnerability. If I have status, I can choose to change bad employers. I can change my employer. If I have status, it takes care of my labor vulnerabilities. With status, I have an open work permit. I can work if anybody is willing to employ me. I can change bad employers. So what does status really mean? It takes care of our immigration vulnerability. It takes care of our labor vulnerability. And what is status to a migrant worker? All the doors that are closed to us, access to health, all those things that we are denied, we are excluded from, it automatically opens the doors to those things. It helps us to access those things. What does status mean to a migrant worker? Is it living in Canada or being treated with dignity and respect and the ability to be treated equally? And because of time, we're going to talk about fighting. I want to tell you, I have 2 books here for raffle. Can I call? Yeah, I have 2 books there to give away. And we've come up with a simple idea to choose 2 people from the audience, right? Now she's do you work with Elections Canada? Show them your certificate that it will be free and fair. Okay, can you go ahead and choose somebody for me? She's randomly is like, she's gonna choose somebody. And can you use the microphone?
Bobby Terrien.
Can you hand it? So he didn't get a book. I just gave him a gun to fight. So I'm expecting you to bring results. And who is that other fighter?
Jody Jones.
And let's talk about fight. Thank you. I can send it afterwards. Afterwards. Yeah, let's talk about fight. Fight. I need somebody to read for me a little bit. There's a fight going on. In Ontario, I know there's something from Quebec. It's upside down? Okay. Exactly, that's what I want to know, to turn the system upside down, because when it's right side up, it's not working for a lot of people. Turn it upside down. There's a fight happening. In Ontario, it's WSIB. What is that? Workers' compensation. And I have a vehicle, I pay motor insurance. So when I get in an accident, I'm off the road, the insurance put me back on the road. We pay WSIB on insurance. What's the insurance? When you get injured on the job, they're supposed to get us back to a productive life. But what does that insurance do? In Ontario, billions in surplus, and workers are left reduced to poverty. Is that the insurance that we're paying? Is that the insurance that's working for us? What can we do about it? Here's one tool that we have. Can somebody read for me? I don't have my glasses. I have a power reader. Yes, just the demands. Can you? Come. Yeah, basically, just the demands. Hold on. Basically, WSIB is asked to make right those shortfalls. Right, treat the workers that are injured, treat them better. But the CEO of WSIB, whatever he's proposing, is not cutting it. A lot of people are excluded. For example, people on the seasonal agricultural workers program, it's only some of them that he wants to touch. And other other workers who come on other programs, they're not included. So listen to the 5 demands, and I want you to decide whether you're going to fight and sign the open letter to the WSIB, the board, to make right those things. I can hold a mic.
In order to make it right, the WSIB must, 1, add all migrant workers in the changes, including those injured before 2007 and those on other migration programs. 2, ensure all migrant workers access to necessary health care for their injuries. 3, give injured migrant workers the choice and means to stay in Ontario for health care. 4, advocate for migrant workers at workers' compensation boards across Canada. 5, meet with injured workers themselves. And 6, end deeming for all workers.
Thank you. Basically, this letter is asking the WSIB to make right, to include everybody and make it a level playing field, right? And I would encourage you. I would like to encourage you. I use the word encourage. I would like to beg you. I would like to persuade you. I would like to push you. I would like to inspire you to sign that letter, and also to pressure your politicians, right? Because what the politicians keep in, that's not an issue. That's not an issue. The culture of silence, we need to break that silence. How can we correct it? How can we correct it if we don't talk about it? Let's talk about it a little bit. What I've tried to tell you, I would like to encourage everybody to watch that documentary, Life and Death. The same death I couldn't spell, Life and Death. It spells out those conditions, those institutions that create the wide divide. I'm over 50 years right now. From the time I was a child, I keep hearing my countries are developing. How long it take us to develop? What are we developing into? I don't know. But anyway, I want you to read about, watch that documentary, Life and Death. In our home countries, there are a lot of conditions that force us to come to Canada. When we get to Canada, developed country, develop or difficult working and living conditions. 20 injustices at every level of government. So we are sandwiched between a rock and a hard place. We are sandwiched between a rock and a hard place. Are you going to be a spectator and watch? Are you going to be a fighter and fight? Let's talk about fight. This is supposed to be a cow. My first grandson bit it, and that's what I want you to do, to buy the cow from it. Because everybody's milking us. Everybody's milking us. Everybody is milking us. And this here is the golden egg. I don't know which farm in Ontario you can get those eggs, but I have one. I want to tell you that we all know that if I drop that egg, it will break and the life inside of it will die. We also know that if that egg breaks by itself because of an inside force, what comes out of it? Life. I want you to know that there's, as a migrant worker, only our hands are needed in Canada. I want you to know that there's power in your hands as a student, as a professor, as an activist, as an injured worker. There's power in ours. We all have a skill. By now, you realize I have a big mouth. Is it a big mouth or a long mouth? You know that. I don't think all of you have a big mouth or a long mouth, but everybody here have a skill. Everybody here have a skill. What is your skill? What is that thing that you like? And how can you use it to create the conditions? What are you going to do with your skill? Are you going to create the condition that will break that egg and kill life? Or are you going to create the conditions that will cause a new Canada, a fair Canada, a just Canada? What are you going to do? Think about it. And before you leave, I want everybody to tell me, what are you going to do? Whether you're going to break that egg and kill life, or whether you're going to create a new Canada, a fair Canada, a just Canada. Because I personally believe if all of you all were to breathe in and take all the air that's in that room, all the air that you want, I will not be worried. Why? Why? There's more than enough. There's an abundance. There's more than enough for everybody. There is more than enough for everyone. There's more than enough for Canada. And that is why I want to tell you about the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. The truth. Does everybody know about the Truth and Reconciliation Commission? Do you know about the report? Do you know number 54 in that 58 in that report? I want to tell you, in a country of abundance, Canada controls over 50 to 75% of the world's supply of fresh water. This very minute, do you know how many communities that do not have access to something that is so basic, so plentiful in Canada? They're calling on you, they're calling on me to do 94 things to make right those injustices. 94 things. 94 things. That tells you the attitude of those people who are in power. Government and religion. The attitude of those people in power. What are you going to do? Are you going to push the politicians to change those unjust laws, or are you going to be a spectator and watch? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gabriel. Promise I won't forget the debt. The night excluded tide. Promise. So I invite Elizabeth Kwan, Stephanie Mayell, and Véronique Tessier to join me on stage. We're going to have a brief synthesis panel, and Gabriel, don't go too far because people may have questions, may want to discuss furthermore. We have 20 minutes before our first break of the day. So Elizabeth Kwan is a senior researcher and policy lead on immigration, migration, trade, and healthcare at the Canadian Labour Congress, or the CLC. Stephanie Mayell has been conducting ethnographic health research with migrant agricultural workers in Canada and across rural Jamaica since 2014 and is a PhD candidate. Et nous avons Véronique Tessier, qui est directrice adjointe du réseau des travailleurs migrant agricole au Québec et aussi candidate à la maîtrise en géographie à l'Université Laval. So you were asked to reflect on what we just heard. So you can take a few minutes and then we can all discuss together. Do you have microphones? Okay. Who wants to start?
Hey, well, Gabriel's story and his generosity to share his experiences both as a farm worker and as an organizer and friend to farm workers is so inspirational and such a gift to the farm worker community and the advocacy and activism community that works alongside this group. And as a researcher, a lot of my work builds on the work of other researchers, sort of looking to bring issues affecting migrant farm workers to the front of people's attention. And that's an effort that we continue to do. But Gabriel, this is his lived experience, his personal life story. And in his presentation, his own words express the conditions facing farm workers here better than I could ever imagine to read or hear anywhere else. I am so grateful for the autoethnography that you wrote, the opportunity for people to read what it's like to be a migrant farm worker in Canada, written by a migrant farm worker. So first, I just want to say thank you, Gabriel, for your incredible support for all of our worker friends, for your example, for your generosity, for your humor, and most importantly, for your time management skills, because I've known you for some time and you've earned that PhD, my friend. But I just want to say that this reality that workers experience here, dehumanizing, dirty, dangerous, excluded, dehumanized, it's not something that we can continue to allow to fall off the sides of policymakers. These 20 injustices that are laid out in Gabriel's book are, like he said, permeating all levels of government. And this takes a concerted effort by all of us to address all of those 20 injustices. So I encourage you to read Gabriel's book if you haven't. It's absolutely amazing. And I just want to say thank you so much, Gabriel, for bringing these issues and your own personal story to our crowd here today. Thank you.
Gabriel, I really hate speaking after you. I really, really do. But I'm also very inspired because working in the unions, we often talk a lot of words. You know, we go out and protest and all of that stuff. That's fine too. But I find that lots of people don't speak with their hearts and with the passion. And I know that when I even demonstrate an iota of passion, it's like, oh, you're so passionate about it. It's like, yeah, it's about people's lives. And that's really what you convey. And I thank you for it. And University of Guelph is just great. Alma mater, wonderful university. Sorry, U of O. I want to reiterate that the experiences of migrant workers is real. It's every day. You know, as Gabriel pointed out, you know, the food that we eat every day here at home, whatever, you know, there's an involvement of migrant workers in it. Even the food that's produced and packaged, you know, somewhere along the line, a migrant workers' labor has been put into it. And oftentimes when we are thrown into these conferences, we kind of talk about the bad things, the good things. We miss out on the bigger things. And I think that what we miss out on sometimes is that we have to stand up for each other and work collectively. Because all these issues divide us. You know, the migrant worker issue is something that divides people all the time. All the time. It is one of those wedges that pitches workers against workers all the time. And I think that, you know, we need to fight it together collectively. We need to understand if we don't understand, ask questions, that's good. But one of the things, the main thing that needs to be broken in this system that, you know, as the UN Special Rapporteur on contemporary slavery said, the program is a breeding ground for slavery, modern slavery. It is not about bad actors. That is an individualized way of looking at it. A bad actor is an individual. Look at it systemically. It allows bad actors to be bad actors, and that's systemic. And that's what we have to stop. And the one thing of this program we need to break is that huge employment imbalance between the worker and the employer, which is called the closed-tied work permit that the migrant workers have to endure all the time. Thank you.
Hi. Good morning, everyone. I'm Véronique Tessier. I work for RATMAC, which is a support network to migrant farm workers in Quebec. We work in all the province. I want to emphasize Gabriel's work today and thank him for his energy and tireless activism. I think that us all as part of union, association, academia, we have to work harder together to give voice to more migrant farm workers, undocumented workers, vulnerable workers of all kinds. Gabriel, you are the living proof that no one is better informed than workers themselves to talk about occupational health and safety issues and inspire change concerning these issues. What gives me hope today is that injured temporary foreign workers are not afraid to speak out anymore. They feel left behind by a so-called win-win-win migration system. They feel betrayed by the country that they hoped would improve their families' well-being. And for lots of them, the traumatic event of a workplace accident gives them courage to advocate for their brothers and sister workers, so that historical discrimination and racism that is entangled with occupational health and safety regime will be challenged and defeated. So that gives me lots of hope today. I want to take advantage of the opportunity to talk to you about the work of the Association for the Rights of Household and Farm Workers. This is a Montreal-based organization that is launching a constitutional class action to end migrant worker unfreedom and abolish closed work permit. So they are going to be heard tomorrow at Montreal courthouse, and you can all assist either virtually or in person. So it's a really important date tomorrow. If you want the details, just come see me afterwards, and I'll send you the link to show your solidarity tomorrow for that important class action. Thanks.
Gabriel, do you want to add something?
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much for those kind words. That makes it feel like I can go home and sleep now. But the fight I've just started. I hope I've said something to push you. Very shortly, what I'll say. They say we live in the information age. There's a lot of information right now. You can stay all night and get information. Everything you've heard there, you can get it from your home. However, there's a lot of misinformation also. I would like to encourage you to everything we said, research about it, challenge it. There's a lot of misinformation because the people who profit from that system, they'll do any and everything to maintain the status quo. There's a lot of misinformation. Get your information from the horse's mouth. And that is why I'm really thankful to the organizers for allowing a horse to get it from the horse's mouth, right? It's different than when you get it from online and so on. Get it from the horse's mouth. Because the people who benefit, they will spend millions, and right now they're spending millions to maintain the status quo. I want to tell you, some of the employers are saying, if we pay the migrant workers more, the cost of food will go up. That's a nice argument. Who are the politicians calling to Ottawa to explain the high cost of living? Who? Is it the migrant workers or the CEOs? And it's very clear. It's very clear. Who are the people that are profit? In Canada, food is not. In Canada, food is not. In Canada, food is not a basic commodity. In Canada, food is food is not a basic human right. In Canada, food is a commodity. In Canada, food is a money-making machine. Canada has a supply management system in place. Canada is the second largest country in the world. If all the food that's produced in Canada is allowed to go to the market, if all the food that is produced in Canada is allowed to go to the market, the real cost of food will be well within our means. Over 50 to 75% of the food that's produced in Canada is for export. So is food a basic human right, or is food a commodity? Think about it. Who are the politicians? Since we're in Ottawa, who are the politicians loyal to? You, the voter, you, the worker, or me, the donors? Who are the politicians loyal to? The day you wake up, the day you answer that question is the day you'll be on your toes running to push your politician. Because the things, the policies, the practices, the procedures, the laws that they have, it always favors the donors. So wake up and take action. Thank you.
Thanks. We have 6 minutes for questions because I want to finish on time since we have the 10:20 return to work for migrant workers session that will be held at the encampment, just 5-minute walk, so we have time to get there. So if somebody has a question, I can pass around the mic. Question, comment.
I have no question for Gabriel, but I have a comment. Gabriel has the answer in here, that we need to be organized together and confronting the political leader, those who work for the donor, not for us. Thank you, Gabriel.
Somebody else?
Good morning, everyone. And thank you all the panelists. Gabriel mentioned one thing, one of the points that I'm thinking, is he saying the truth or is it using another system to lie to us? You're talking about silence, that Canada is a country where they want everybody to be silent. And I want to ask the organizer of this program, is this another form of being silent? Because if we need to speak out, is whatever we're doing here, is it getting to the government, or we just still bottle everything in another old bottles? I want to know.
I didn't quite get the question, unless you all got it.
Was the question, is this event going to culminate in a silence because of the absence of policymakers? Is that what you're asking?
Well, I mean, like, silence means that you're not doing anything and you're mute. And now doing this kind of program means that you want to speak out. So now, is this kind of speaking out, getting out, or are we just speaking only in this room?
It's like you are awake and you want action. Here is some action. Ready? 1, we have the letter there to sign. That is one way of putting your voice to to take action, right? To the WSIB. That is one clear form of action. Another clear form of action is the protesters outside there. Yeah, can I stop it? Is that a protester? It must be true, though. You see the politician, you see, thank you for doing that. Otherwise, the politicians would never realize that we are, the protesters out there, that is something new to Canada. Even the unions are quiet, right? Where's the fire? They said from NAFTA. Before NAFTA, Canada, the number of unionized workers was way, way, way higher before or during NAFTA. And from NAFTA, what do we see? And whenever there are less unionized people, that means that the quality, the working conditions are eroding, right? The government, the federal government that's in power, when they first got into office, what did they say? The new real change. I was dancing, real change. I was dancing, right? Real change. That's what I wanted, real change. When they got into office, what is this music that they're playing to you? The new reality. What's the new reality? Short-term employment, flexible. Isn't that what they're singing to you? Is that what you want? Now, these are things that they learned from migrant workers. Seasonal agriculture, temporary. These are the things that they bring into mainstream employment. Is that the kind of future that we want? Don't we want stable jobs, predictable income, and so on? Isn't that what we want? But short-term employment, this and that, flexible job. And these are things that they've tried on us. Now, the question is, what do we want? We know what we are fighting, but what do we want? And that is a good question, brother man. This is a good question. We know what we are fighting, but what kind of future do we want? Are we going to spend the time fighting the old? Are we going to spend time building the new? What do we want? What kind of Canada do we want? What kind of Canada do we want? And I personally believe that we have sufficient resource for everybody to live a decent life. I believe so. But what do you believe? I do not know. Are we quiet about what do we want? I'm not the organizer of the event. I cannot speak for them. What do we want to come out of that? We want this guy at the back there. He should be at the head table. He's all the way at the back. But the fact that I can get to you at the back, it means that we are able to reach everybody. Now, look at that. He's all the way at the back. But he wants to take action. He wants to be at the front taking action. And that is the thing. Have we said something to push you to take action? And as organizers, what do we want? I do not know the objective or the goal of this conference, so I don't want to speak, but it is very clear that we together, that's what the politicians are afraid of, the day we all stand united. They use religion, they use race, they use all kinds of things to separate us, right? We're all divided in, they pit us one against the other, but we all connected by food. We all know what is dignity. We all are connected in so many ways, right? But they use our differences. What do we want? Would somebody, I'm not too sure if you'll have to add or the organizers want to add, what do we want to come out of this? I'm not sure. To me, that's the question.
Do you want to conclude on something or?
So I'm also not an organizer and can't speak on behalf of anybody, but I think that one of the most promising aspects of this event has been the opportunity for us all to connect together and think about issues facing vulnerable workers, especially after injury, and what can be done. In the Ontario context, just going to redirect attention to the letter, the open letter put on by the Injured Workers Action for Justice. That will be taken directly to the WSIB and demand a response. And if there's no response given, the demands don't stop, the voices just get louder. I also think it's important to think about the recent announcement from the federal government, projecting changes to the program, but projecting them so far down the road, and in between the date they've earmarked, we're likely going to have an election and a change of government. So we can't be complacent when we hear these announcements that are saying, we're going to do something sometime soon. We hear you. The government's very good at synthesizing activists and advocates and workers' perspectives in a "we heard you" report. And then that just sits on a table. And I think we need to be done with that now. We all eat, as Gabriel said, we're all implicated. Do we accept an indentured system of unfree labor so that we can sustain our own selves? I don't. I agree. Probably we all don't. So let's work together. Gabriel has started an amazing group at the University of Guelph, bringing together activists, advocates, workers, scholars, researchers. These kinds of solidarity movements, I think personally, are what's required. Justice for Migrant Workers does tremendous work. Industrial Accident Victims Group of Ontario does tremendous work. So in the Ontario context, forming organized solidarity around those efforts would be, I think, what's required to take the knowledge we've learned today and kind of mobilize that in solidarity with some of the actions and efforts already being undertaken.
Thanks. Well, yeah, as we have one last question. Thanks.
So if people want action, I get tired of signing petitions and not knowing what happens to them and never hearing from them again. So one of the things I would suggest, if it's possible, is that the folks taking the petition to the WSIB report back to the organizers, and the organizers send out a note to people saying, here's what's happened and here's what the folks who are working on this petition want people to be doing. It's at least something to continue the work that's been done here.
Thanks. And I'm part of the organizing committee, and I think what we want is to take action and not to be in like I don't know in English, but in French, like chambre d'écho, that we all speak, we all echo chamber, yeah. So we all like say the same things, but we stay in our little groups and it doesn't evolve. So thank you, everyone. We don't have time for any more questions or comments. Thank you to the panelists, to Gabriel.